Welcome to the Growth, Grace, and Prosperity Podcast. Join Stewart Heath for down-to-earth conversations with top professionals, entrepreneurs, and leaders who have a story to tell. Let's get rolling.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for another episode of the Growth, Grace, and Prosperity Podcast. I am your host, Stewart Heath. I'm the founder and CEO of Harvard Grace Capital. And we are very blessed today to have Josh Scales join us today. Very interested. I'm getting to know Josh at the same time y'all are. So, Josh, thanks for joining us and sharing your story with us today.
No problem at all. Thank you for having me.
Yes, sir. Let's get to it. Josh, in the course of your career, sometimes we have game-changing events. Can you share one in your life that put you on the path to where you are now versus a path that perhaps maybe you thought you were on?
Yeah. Specifically, so in undergrad, my first degree was in mass communications. Prior to going to college, I had a music career, right? So mass communications translated easily for me because it was something that I was already familiar with, So I was going to school and I had a fraternity brother who was a good friend / mentor. And I was kind of talking to him about what I wanted to do afterwards, right? So I had the opportunity to shadow a few radio stations, intern at a few radio stations, and I finally went back to him and was like, "Hey, man, this is really cool, but I don't know. I don't think this is something that don't move at the speed I kind of like to move in, And I think I may want to change my direction." And he was like, "Hey, you should probably get into healthcare technology." And I was like, "Healthcare? What do you mean? I don't want to be a doctor, man." He was like, "No." He was like, "Man, it's at a pivotal point right now where healthcare is getting digitized and things are going from paper to electronics." And he was like, "If you can learn these systems that the government is making us adopt now, dude, your career, well, you'll never look back." So I took his advice, and he actually gave me an intern at his facility at the time where he was a COO. And I realized how easy the technology was. So I caught on fast. So within a year, man, or so, about, somewhere between 12 months, I realized that I could learn the systems really quick. So the intern turned into a job. The job turned into me learning very rapidly on the job, kind of like a crash course. But it translated easy because I was already pretty tech savvy anyways. And then I became the go-to technology guy. And then I was blessed to be able to work with organizations like St. Thomas, LifePoint, done some projects with the state around this time. But at that moment, I was the young kid going around, all rural Tennessee, implementing electronic medical records in doctors' offices at a time where they were used to still using paper. And it was interesting, right? And that's where
My doctor still uses paper. I guess
so,
you never made it down here.
Yeah, so that was really for me. And I was like, oh, okay, I like this healthcare thing. I like people. I like technology. And I like working with people. So, and then I went and worked with other organizations, large corporate organizations. And that's where I really cut my teeth in big healthcare business. And once I kind of put all the things together, man, I was like, I love it. And I haven't looked back ever since. And I've been blessed to work with some great organizations, learn under some of the best leaders in the healthcare industry, and really to continue to foster that charter that path of innovation and be that person. Because I've been there, I've done the work. So I'm not some guy that's just talking about, innovation, and I've read it out of some journal that, I frequently review. I've done the work from on the ground, elbow to elbow with doctors all over rural Tennessee to being in rural areas in some of the most remote states in the country. So I have a different respect for, what the healthcare industry entails and the work that our doctors and nurses and the folks that support those organizations do on a daily basis.
Yeah, good. So from music to tech.
Yeah.
Well, actually, that's not as unusual as you might think it is. I mean, I'm in Nashville. I think you're in Nashville too, and there's music people everywhere. But do you still play music?
Well, actually, no, I don't. So when I was a kid in a group at a young age, but one thing I do have is I have a podcast called the Follow Up Podcast, where we talk about music, health, and culture. So it's one of the things that I'm really passionate about right now because we're really doing a big launch here, preferably by second quarter of this year. where I'll be talking with some of the biggest, healthcare executives, entertainers, athletes, everyday people about those three things. And it's a great way for me to take kind of three things that I really love and kind of mash them all together and talk to people about it, right? And I feel like nobody better than me to do that because I've done all three and I can have that conversation. And there's a need for, the masses and people to have, conversations about health and to be properly educated on, different things that are out there in the world and this new digitization and you see, where everything's going digital and how can people actually use that technology to help themselves and help their family members, but also just hear common stories from important individuals like yourself. We all have something health wise that we deal with, right? And we're always figuring out how can I get better at this, or what did this person, how do I use this, or could I do better here? I mean, there's multiple ways that we all can share similar stories that could possibly provide value to someone else. So we're taking that instinct, and it's not a very formal, buttoned up conversation. It's more a laid back, person to person, to where people can really get really value information from one another. So I'm excited about that. So that's my only, I would say, since I left the music industry, that's been my only new foray to where I'm kind of touching it a little
Gotcha.
more. Yeah.
Okay, Josh, everybody hits bumps in the road in their career. Sometimes it makes us veer off to another path. So it could be a game-changing moment, but not always. Sometimes it's just a challenge we have to overcome.
Hmm.
Can you share a time where you had to manage a bump in the road and
But
how
I've
to do
had a
that?
many a bumps in the road.
Yeah, we all do. Yeah, we
Yeah.
all do.
But
Pick one.
But yeah, man, it was one part in my career where, working for corporate organizations, that's it's a different animal, right? And with large organizations and big business comes fast changes. So I've been through the cycle of a few organizations being sold and being just a, employee number 1,000 or whatever I was, and facing a point where it's like, okay, I've always wanted to do something entrepreneurial, right? But I love big business and I love the idea of starting, from an entry level and climbing the corporate ladder, and being successful in a large corporate entity and continuing to grow that, right? But which I had the opportunity to do, but I've always wanted to do something entrepreneurial, but I was too chicken to do it, right? Because you get comfortable. I have a family, a wife, kids, so I'm like, you think of all the reasons why not to do it, other than just to take the opportunity and jump out there and bet on yourself. And I just got to a point where I was working with the firm, and this was still a little early on the digital health side, where I was kind of like, one of those people arguing with executives about the benefits of digital health before COVID, which was a completely different conversation. Unless you had a very innovative, forward-thinking, executive or leader, they weren't trying to hear about doing telemedicine as visits, right? Because it's got to be an ROI attached to it in some instances, And I just decided, like, hey, I'm gonna jump out and do it myself. So jumping out in the entrepreneurial space, like cold turkey, technically, was one of the scariest things and one of the most uncomfortable things I've ever done. And I've been the only guy in the room with all types of executives, and I can be in any room and be absolutely comfortable because that's just my personality. But the entrepreneurship life and jumping out there and knowing that, that six-figure salary and those quarterly bonuses and those things aren't just going to come your way, and you pretty much you gotta eat what you kill. That was a big, big, big change for me because I had never done it before. And then I really had to learn how to get comfortable with being uncomfortable and just understand that, when you're doing something like that, it's not going to be easy because if it was, everyone would do it. So I did a lot of soul searching and I've learned a lot about myself over the past 4 years that I didn't know before. And if it wasn't for my wife and some really cool mentors and people that I really hold close to my heart and some of the, guys who really gave me great advice and guidance, I don't know where I would be now. And trust me, I'm still uncomfortable. And that's okay because I'm good with being uncomfortable now. But it
I
really,
got news for you.
yeah.
It doesn't get any better after 40 years. So,
Yeah, I know, right? I can look. Everyone says that, right? Every business, anyone who started a business and ran a business and tried to grow a business and scale a business, they give me the same answer. But I would say, man, I enjoy doing it. I like working with big organizations. I like big corporate business because from starting from where I started and being able to do the things that I've already done and been blessed to do, I love it, and I don't have anything against working with I work with a ton of corporate organizations, but just being an entrepreneur and being able to do things and do some of the projects and work with some of the cool organizations. I mean, I'm just blessed to be able to do what I've done and be able to accomplish what I've accomplished to this point. I'm not done. I got a lot more to go,
Yeah,
and a lot more to accomplish. But I'm very, very, very thankful for what I've been able to do.
that's great. So yeah, what I thought you were going to say is that you lost your job and then you just decided to start your thing. So about half the entrepreneurs we talk to, that's what happened. They lost their job, and but the others are, like myself, you and me, we quit perfectly good jobs and to go out and do our own things. So, just so you know that there's a lot of research out there that shows that entrepreneurs are about 75% more likely than the general population to have ADD, which is classified as mental illness.
Yeah,
So,
I know.
we're almost all mentally ill.
Yeah,
So
my wife has told me that a few times. But hey,
it's like, well, what are you gonna do now?
right,
We done it now.
right.
So, Josh, sometimes I hate learning new things, especially when it's something that not necessarily going to benefit me. Maybe it's learning a new piece of software that gets crammed down our throats. But other times, I love learning new stuff. Um, how do you stay current in your field?
Mhm.
And what sources do you pull from? Tell us about that process. How do you stay
Yeah, man.
current?
One method that I've used just to stay highly engaged in organizations, right? So I sit on the board for a few organizations here in the Nashville area. So the Tennessee Hymns chapter, our local chapter, I sit on the board there. Our Leadership Healthcare, which is a subsidiary of the Nashville Healthcare Council, I sit on the board there. Also, I'm one of the chairs for the South Central Telehealth Resource Center. Um, I find that being involved is the best way for me because I like to learn all the time. Even though I've done a lot of this stuff and I eat, sleep, and breathe it, and there's not much you could throw at me that I haven't dealt with or seen in a care setting. I still got to learn. I like to keep learning, like with all of the new influx of AI and artificial intelligence and machine learning. Like that's new. It's not new for me because it's been around for a while. It's just the context that it's being presented in and the different use cases that's being pushed out is slightly different than what we're used to seeing in the healthcare space. But man, I just stay highly engaged, and I'm a big listener. I'm a podcast guy now.
Engaged with what? Are you getting podcasts? Are you
But
reading stuff? Or
I read a lot of books and I listen to a lot of podcasts, but I also do a lot of work with the organizations that I sit on the board with,
right?
and
Okay.
just staying engaged with those organizations and be involved in committees and always networking and working with people that are new to the healthcare industry all the way up to seasoned executives. That's how I keep my brain balanced because I think there's right now in healthcare we're having like a generational change, right? You got the group before us who pretty much built what we're all living in right now, and then you got that new innovative thinking generation like myself and you and others that are coming into the space. And there's a fine line where you take that wisdom and knowledge and experience and you intertwine it with the innovation, the forward thinking, the thought leadership, and you make something wonderful work. That's what I like to do because the constructs of business that has been developed over the past 30, 40 years, a lot of it has been great. But technology is changing the way we as human beings consume everything, right? And healthcare is really getting a facelift, especially post COVID, with the influx of the digitization of everything we do in the industry. So that's the part I like, because when we look down the road 40, 50 years, we think things are crazy now with all the new AI. It's going to be extremely in we as consumers and patients, what we see, how we view our own health, how we consume certain, health education as it pertains to our own personal health, how we care for our loved ones. That's all going to change. And we have to be up to speed with that. So that's what gets me up every day and keeps me pushing. Even some days I have, I'm just like everybody else. I have good days and I have bad days, right? Some days I'm discouraged, some days I'm not. I'm very confident in what I do, but I am discouraged sometimes. Just I'm a human being, you know what I mean? But but That kind of stuff is what keeps me going.
It's just proof we're not in control, you know.
Exactly. Exactly. And I respect that 1000%.
Josh, one of the things we like to ask our entrepreneurs and our successful business people here is what do they do with their personal investable cash? And we're not asking for any numbers, just how do you deploy your personal investments? A lot of entrepreneurs, you know, may be all in on their company that they started. Others who have been able to have some liquidity events over time, you know, pick different things, and the answers are just all over the place. So, are you
Yeah.
are you thinking Beanie Babies are going to come back? Or are you all in on Dogecoin? Or how do you deploy your personal cash?
Man, I like to diversify things, but I'm an entrepreneur, so a lot of times a bunch of my money is tied up. But I do rely on people who do that for a living, like professional folks, to help guide me with a lot of my money decisions. I have done some things in the past that I've done good at, and I have also lost a lot, just like everyone else. But I always, I lean on the professionals to take care of that piece, but I also have some instinctful things that I like to do in businesses that I'm very familiar with that I like to be involved in, and some that I've talked about being involved in, but I haven't pulled the trigger yet, which I plan on doing so this year. But I don't know, man. I'm not like the get rich quick guy. I believe in hard work, right? And sticking with something and finding something and working hard and you know and over time getting what you put the work in for. Um, so I don't really jump on these trends a lot because by the time we hear about it, it's really too late. That's what a lot of folks don't understand. Now, sometimes I have friends
Totally.
in different areas of business, and if they tell me something and I really trust them and I know that they're good at what they do, then I'll get involved. But
Right.
I stick to the traditional route, man. I let the professionals do what they do. Like I don't do things I'm not good at. I'm not that guy. I like to hire people and work with people that are excellent at what they do. And I also have my set of skills. But the things I'm not good at, I like to surround myself with people who are and work closely with them to ensure that I'm making the proper decisions. I'm not a guy who think, oh yeah, I'm a financial expert. Oh, I'm a Dogecoin cryptocurrency guy now because everyone's talking about. That's not really my thing. That's not really my. But I am an innovative guy, and I like to, stay keep my thumb on the edge of innovation. But I don't really follow the trends that we see on social media. I like to lean on true and tried professionals that can give me good sound advice. Now, you sometimes you get lucky, sometimes you don't. Just like an entrepreneur, every business is not going to work. Your business may work for 10 years, but you may not ever scale that business to $100 million business, right?
Yeah.
Your idea may be great, but something changes in the market, regulatory change pushes down, pretty much depletes your whole business model. You got to move on to something else, right? So I also got comfortable with being able to pivot because you can't stay the same too long. You got to in this rapidly changing world that we live in today. Uh,
If you ain't growing, you're dying.
Man, if you ain't growing, you're dying. Absolutely, that's the name of the game. But yeah, man, I'm not really one of those Instagram highlight reel. Hey, you better get this coin now. And dude, listen, by the time we hear about it, it's too late. If you're not in the inner circle with those folks that are moving it, you probably
Exactly right. By the time you heard about it, the deal's already up for sure.
yeah, yeah, the cat's already out of the bag by then.
All right, as we're coming down to the end of our time here, uh, this is my favorite question. Josh, if you had one nugget of advice for somebody that maybe you're mentoring or somebody who just wants to follow in your footsteps, what would it be?
Get comfortable with being uncomfortable.
I like that.
You have to be. You, I'm telling you, I'm not. I haven't been comfortable since I left my last job. You have to be okay with that, and it may not be like it's a personality thing too. So a lot of people think they want to be entrepreneurs until they go out, and their personality may not be programmed yet to be an entrepreneur because the ups, the downs, the uncertainties, the ambiguity that comes along with it. You just got to be comfortable with being uncomfortable and it's okay to fail. Not every idea is going to work. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think as I look back on my very long career at this point, you know, I've learned far more from failing than succeeding. And that's true of everybody. And you learn what not to do.
yeah,
Sometimes you succeed from sheer dumb luck and you don't know why you succeeded.
yeah,
You
exactly.
generally know why you failed.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And maybe it's multiple things. But anyway, I love that. Get comfortable with being uncomfortable. That
Yeah, man.
that's that is some good stuff right there. So, Josh, thank you so much for taking time out
Yeah,
to
no
be with
problem.
us today and sharing your story.
Yeah, thank
Uh,
you.
if anybody wanted to reach out to you and just connect with you personally, how would they do that?
You can, I'm on LinkedIn as Joshua Scales, or you could you send me an email at jscales@unityhealth.io, and Unity is spelled UNITI. Just reach out to me if you want to have a conversation, or if you're in the health tech space, or if you're a provider, or if you're a private equity group and you're interested in getting into. I like to talk about healthcare and innovation. So if you like to do the same, shoot me an email and we can schedule some time to grab coffee or lunch or something.
I love it. We'll make sure those links get into the show notes for the audience members who want to reach out to Josh. And thank you, the audience, for watching this episode of the Growth, Grace, and Prosperity podcast. And watch out for the next one. So thanks for joining us, everybody.
Great. Thank you, sir.
Thanks for tuning in to the Growth, Grace, and Prosperity podcast. If you'd like to be a guest, visit growthgraceprosperity.com/guest. We'd love to hear your story.